for JennSQ, best-selling author. How are you? And we have a great author today that you want to highlight.
I am doing great. The book Becoming Fire is also doing great. I'm getting a lot of sales, direct sales, as well as Amazon, Walmart, places like that, Barnes and Noble, and and my being on the internet and getting more into social media. I've been running across a lot more of my fellow retired federal agents, and I came across DEA agent Leo Silva. And Leo has a book called Reign of Terror that is just absolutely fabulous about his career. And he has a second book coming out. So I wanted to invite him today and have him be a guest with us for a little bit.
Well, it certainly is a pleasure to be here, and I really thank you all for the invite.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good morning, Leo.
Morning.
Yeah. How long were you with DEA?
So I was with DEA for 28 years. I started in 1987. I started here on the border in McAllen, Texas. And after being here for, I would say, 13 to 14 years, I applied for a transfer to Mexico. And my first assignment in Mexico was Guadalajara, Jalisco. And after that, I promoted to supervisor, came back to McAllen. And then after 3 years in McAllen, I went to Monterrey, where I was there for 7 years. And that's the basis for my book, Reign of Terror.
Yes.
Because, the things we lived through in Monterrey were just incredible. So,
wow.
Well, I remember hearing about them and getting some instructions on them from my level, being with ATF during that time. But Leo's book really puts a lot more perspective on just how bad things had deteriorated and gotten, and how much more control the cartels were taking, and just the violence and the drug trafficking. It's amazing. Uh, I don't know how the people in those countries, or there in Monterrey, for Mexico, I don't know how they made it.
yeah, it was terrible. And just to give listeners some background, my book talks about a faction of the Gulf Cartel that's called the Zetas. Zetas is the last letter of the alphabet Z, and in Mexico it's pronounced Zeta. So these guys were all special forces, former special forces members from the Mexican army,
my
and they
gosh.
deserted. And they were the security detail for the leader of the Gulf Cartel, Osiel Caldas Guillen. And when Osiel Cardenas Guillen got arrested, they pretty much took over. And not only did they take over the Gulf Cartel, they took over the entire country of Mexico. So that's what my book details. And we certainly lived through some really tough times battling these guys. The public is not aware really of some of the things that they did, some of these atrocities that they committed. So it's detailed in my book.
How are you not afraid to detail this in your book, especially if the cartel can come after you?
Well, the thing is, this happened pretty much about 17 years ago. A lot of them are dead or in jail. The main character that we were focusing on is awaiting trial in Washington, D.C. right now. He was extradited in February of this year, along with 25 other individuals. So he's awaiting trial, and if he gets convicted, he's looking at the death penalty. So, it's a huge accomplishment for the U.S. to bring him to face justice here. But I'm not gonna proclaim victory until he's convicted and I see that he gets a significant sentence.
We'll have to wish the best for that, for sure.
Mhm.
Now, I remember the talks, and a lot of times it got mispronounced as Zetas, and it was the Zetas, and we would see just small clips on the news. It wasn't a lot. And being on the East Coast, I know that we saw much less than what was shown perhaps on the West Coast or down on the border. But even then, I don't think that the public, I don't think that our political government, I don't think anybody was really letting folks know how dangerous this group was, and just how violent they had made it in the country of Mexico, for the citizens to just be able to go out and live and work and try to be, live a peaceful life, and to be able to just make a living. They took over everything.
Exactly. They spared no one. They had no mercy.
No,
All the
none at all.
police were on their payroll, so I mean, there's nobody you can go to report anything because they were all on the payroll.
Wow.
So, it's fascinating, but at the same time, we lived through it, really hard times. One of the main things that started this whole entire, I would call it, battle between DEA and this faction was they attacked the U.S. consulate in October of 2008. They launched 2 grenades at the U.S. consulate in Monterrey, shot up the building, and that's what started pretty much everything. Because we as the U.S. government, we're not going to just, like Dirty Harry would say, well, we're not going to let you just get away with this, are we? So that's what started everything between the U.S. government and the Zetas cartel down in Monterrey.
So why do you think organized crime in Mexico is still so much stronger than, let's say, the United States? Or I might be completely wrong about this. A lot of organized crime has disappeared, especially looking at the mafia and Italian or certain mafias. I know there's still the Russian mafia and some other ones, but not as big organized crime in the United States as there is in Mexico.
Right, correct. And it's all about corruption. And when you talk about organized crime, well, there's traditional organized crime like the Italian mob. When people think about traditional organized crime, you're thinking about the Italian mafia, the mob, and this and that. Well, these guys took that model and used it. They're not what you would call traditional organized crime, like Don Corleone or like that. But these guys took that model and they used it, and they used fear as their main weapon to control the country, to control every state, every city that they were in. So yeah, it's not exactly the same, but it's the same model.
I remember during part of that time, it was the first time that I had been aware or had seen that areas of Mexico we were actually getting travel warnings about not going as a tourist or in that line of things. And we hadn't really seen that before. It hadn't been that way with Mexico. People went there all the time for vacations. There were all these places you could go and enjoy. And, I remember back in the 70s, the Love Boat was on. They were always stopping at ports in Mexico, and it was always so beautiful and lovely. And all of a sudden, with the Zetas and the violence, we started seeing the increase of the State Department having to put out warnings about certain places not to travel or to be more cautious. And you're like, really? This can't be. But you were just seeing this cartel extreme, and you had no idea who it would affect or who was going to get kidnapped or what else was going to happen or where they might decide to attack, like with the consulate.
So yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Mexico is a beautiful country.
Yes.
I mean, there's lines and miles of coastline that is beautiful. So I'm not knocking that, but these guys ruined it for everyone because you can't take your kid to a nice park because you're afraid of getting caught in a crossfire or having somebody kidnapped from your family. So these guys pretty much ruined this beautiful country because of thetheir actions, and then this fear that they generated among the community. So yeah, and we were glad to step in. We had some really good teams that helped us out in that effort. So yeah, we were fortunate.
Now, so talk about the process of what you did to uncover some of this stuff.
Well,
without giving the book away. Yeah.
And we couldn't have done the operation that I speak of in my book without the cooperation, obviously, with our host country of Mexico.
Right.
So we used we had a team of Army Special Forces guys that we would provide them with the intelligence, and they would go take action and conduct operations on these guys. So that was, I mean, without that, this book wouldn't exist. So we were very successful using them, and as far as also we used a team of Mexican Marines, also Special Forces trained by the Navy SEALs. And these guys were just exceptional, So, and I talk about them in this book as well. So I mean, without those guys, without those teams, this wouldn't have been possible. So, yes.
Now you've got The Reign of Terror out, and then you've got another book coming very soon. You're right here in early 2026. We're expecting a second book.
That's correct. Yeah. So I have this book coming out hopefully in late February. It's called Narco Tales. And it's not anything like Reign of Terror. Reign of Terror is more like a memoir of mine, and talks about the operations we conducted against the Zetas. Narco Tales is a collection of short stories. I mean, I majored in literature in college, and I'm a fan of Ernest Hemingway and John Steinbeck and all those writers. So, so I just love the way Hemingway used to put together a collection of short stories, and I always wanted to do that. So I got some of the stories that took from my experience in Mexico, and I put it together in this book called Narco Tales. And each one is a short story that stands on its own, and I'm sure the public will enjoy it.
No,
Oh, I'm sure.
this is awesome. I mean, you're really coming out of your comfort zone, becoming a multi-genre author now.
Well, I told Jennifer the other day, it's something I always wanted to do. I'm pretty much living my dream because in college I studied to be an English teacher, and I majored in English, and I love literature, and I've always loved it. But when I joined DEA, well, I didn't have time to sit down and write. So now that I'm retired, I have time now, and I'm doing what I love, and I'm enjoying it immensely. And I hope it reflects in these books that people can read in the future here.
It's interesting when you talk about the whole retiring thing. How challenging is that for you, transitioning from DEA to civilian life?
It's extremely challenging. I mean, and it's all about mindset. I mean, the first year was, I mean, here I go from having a team of 40 Marines they'll jump whatever you say. Hey, I need 20 of you to go over here and 20 of you to go over there, and this and that, and conducting these high level operations. And then you come home and that's all gone. So, and I'll tell you a funny story about when I first retired. My granddaughter was maybe 3 or 4 years old, and I had just been retired a couple of months, and she had her toys all over the floor, and I said, "Baby, can you please pick up your toys from the floor?" And I'm used to people just doing what I say. And she turned around and said, "No, I'm not picking up my toys." And that's when it hit me. I said, "Man,
You have
I'm not
no
the boss
authority.
anymore, man. I'm not in charge anymore." So
No
Wow. You know what? You see, you're perfect. You're perfect to create a business and be an entrepreneur in your retirement. You can run teams. A lot of people can't run teams.
yeah, it's a challenge, and I loved it when I was in the middle of it all. But you come back and that's gone. It's just like somebody chopped off a part of your body or something. But you adjust.
They took it away.
Yeah, you adjust, and you really have to. And I kind of reinvented myself, if you'd like to call it that. And now I'm doing what I love, something I've always wanted to do, and that's right. And Narco Tales, I really enjoyed it. I put a lot of effort into it and made sure that for me, that at least that it was perfect. I think my editors will probably say something else, but
No.
yeah, I'm really doing what I love now.
Wonderful.
I'm glad that you've been able to tell some of this, because it's not out there for people to know, and they should know, because they need to see where things were and where things have been going, and as to why certain actions have to be taken, and who else caught up in that crossfire, who's stuck in the middle, dealing with it, because
Correct.
it's not me in Georgia, it's not happening to me.
Correct. Down here in Texas, we have a lot of winter visitors, and
Right.
I've been able to sell my book to a lot of those friends. And after they read it, they come to me and they say, "I had no idea this was going on." So that's one of the reasons I wrote it, because I want to open people's eyes and make them aware of what your government is doing for you, what we're doing, not only in Mexico, but in countries all over the world. So a lot of people have no idea that this is going on. So in a way, I wrote it to open people's eyes and make them aware of what we're doing.
Wow.
Where have you got your book at, Leo? Where can our viewers, where can they find you?
So the easiest way to order my book is at my website, leosilvaauthor.com. It's available there, and we have it available in Spanish and English. So
There you go.
leosilvaauthor.com, and that's the easiest way to go in and order my book.
Excellent.
Okay.
It was great having you on, Leo, and your story. Wow.
Well,
And
I appreciate it.
it's something where I think about I couldn't imagine what you've done. And it really shows when we watch these TV shows about cartels, this is real. And when our president talks about it or other people talk about it, it's a real thing and a real problem, and we have to address it. So
That's correct. Well, I appreciate it. I thank you for having me on the show this morning.
All right. Thanks, Leo. All right. And go to JenniferClarkSQ.com to purchase her book. Get an autographed signed copy right there.